Learning objective number 3 is to compute product costs using an activity-based costing system. If we're given our estimated overhead costs, and again, for our activity-based costing system, we've broken it down into, in this case, 6 different cost pools, and given our total estimated or expected activity level, we simply need to take our estimated overhead cost and divide it by our estimated total activity level to calculate our estimated predetermined overhead rate or activity rates. So we'll take our estimated labor-related cost of 800,000, we divide it by our 500 expected direct labor hours and got an activity rate of $1.60 per direct labor hour. For machine-related, we did our 2.1 million in estimated overhead cost divided by 100,000 estimated machine hours to come up with an activity rate of $2.10 per machine hour. And we went through and we would have calculated our activity rates for each one of our 6 cost pools. Then, just like in our job order costing system when we had a single plant-wide predetermined overhead rate, we will multiply our predetermined overhead rate or activity rate by our expected activity level. So for our DVDs, we expect to expend or use 100,000 direct labor hours. We'll multiply that by our $1.60 per direct labor hour for our overhead rate, and we apply $160,000 in overhead. For our machine-related cost pool, we expect to incur 300,000 machine hours making DVDs, and we multiply that by our predetermined overhead rate or activity rate of $2.10 per machine hour, and apply $630,000 in overhead. We do this for each one of our cost pools, then add up the total amount of estimated overhead for each one of the cost pools, and we find we're going to have $4,890,000 in total manufacturing overhead assigned to our DVDs. We'll take that cost and divide it by our 50,000 units that we plan to produce, and we get an overhead cost per unit of $97.80. We'll do a similar thing for our CDs. We'll multiply our expected activity levels by our predetermined overhead rates or activity rates to assign our labor-related overhead cost in the amount of $640,000. Machine-related overhead will be assigned in the amount of $1,470,000. Machine setup related, again, we expect to have 1,000 setups at a rate of $400 per setup. We'll assign $400,000 in overhead. We total up the overhead for all 6 cost pools, and we find that we expect to assign in total $5,110,000 in manufacturing overhead to our 200,000 CD units. We take our total overhead, divide it by the number of units, and we get an overhead cost per unit, which in this case is $25.55. If we want to calculate our total cost per unit, we need information regarding our direct material and direct labor costs for our DVDs and our CDs. That's given right here. $90 direct material, $20 in direct labor for the DVDs, and for the CDs it's $50 and $20. Our total unit cost then is simply we add our direct material plus our direct labor plus the amount of assigned manufacturing or allocated manufacturing overhead that we have just calculated of $97.80 for the DVDs and $25.55 per CD unit. And we get total unit product cost of $207.80 for the DVD units and $95.55 for the CD units.